Hi guys, welcome back to Ladensa Crochets. If you're new to the channel, my name is Liz. You're welcome. Kindly subscribe and join the family. In this tutorial, we're making a maxi dress using the granny stitch that I've fallen in love with, and I hope you're going to love this too. I'll use a 4mm crochet hook for this, a medium weight yarn. You already know the yarn that I use, Winter King. It's 100% acrylic. It's a 4-ply yarn and it's a Kenyan brand. You can substitute this with any medium weight yarn of your choice. A pair of scissors, a darning needle, at least 2 stitch markers, and a measuring tape. Begin with a slip knot. Then chain 5. Pull out your hook from the 5th chain and insert it into the 1st chain, and then put it back into the 5th. And now continue chaining until you get your bust measurement. I'm first going to chain 100 and then I'll check whether it gets me to my bust measurement. I have the 100 chains, so I'll get my measuring tape and measure this from this point. And we measure while stretching. So when I stretch this out, let's see. It gets me to, to 18.5, and I want to work a bust measurement of 36. 18.5 multiplied by 2, that's 37. And so I'm going to reduce the stitches so that it gets me to 18. I'll reduce around 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is a chain of 95. So we measure while stretching, and that gets me to 18. I don't know why my measuring tape is folding. So this is getting me to 18, and that's what I want to work with, because 18 multiplied by 2 is 36. Now you're going to pull this loop through the first loop for a slip stitch, just like that. And we begin row 1 by chaining 2. The chain 2 will act as our first double crochet into the very first chain. Then we're going to yarn over and go into that same chain and place a double crochet, so that we have 2 double crochets into the same chain. Then we're going to skip the chain that follows, skip this one, work into the next one and place 2 double crochets. So you yarn over so that you have 3 loops on your hook, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's a double crochet. So go back into that chain and place another double crochet. Yarn over, skip the next chain, work into the one that follows, 2 double crochets into it. Skip the next one, work into the other one that follows, place 2 double crochets into it. Skip and work 2 double crochets. So we're skipping this, working into these 2 double crochets, and we repeat this to the end. I've gotten to the end of row 1 and it looks like I have 2 stitches remaining, and therefore I'll skip both of them and work straight into the first chain 2. On top of it, I'll do a slip stitch to complete that row. Then chain 2 and turn to begin row 2. For row 2, we're going to work into these gaps that are in between the 2 double crochet clusters. So after the chain 2, we go into this gap and place 1 more double crochet to make 2. Then we're going to skip over to the next gap, this one, and work 2 double crochets there. 1 and 2. Skip into the next gap and place 2 double crochets. 2 double crochets into the gap that follows. 2 double crochets next, then repeat to the end. I'm in the last gap where I'll place the 2 double crochets. Then to complete row 2, we slip stitch on top of the chain 2. Chain 2 and turn to begin the next row, which is our row 3. And row 3 is worked the same way as row 2. So we begin in this very first gap with 1 double crochet. Then 2 double crochets into the next gap. Two double crochets into the gap that follows. Then repeat to the end. Once you get to the end of row 3, you're going to slip stitch on top of the chain 2, then chain 2 and turn to begin row 4. And we're going to keep on repeating these rows until you get the length from your armpits to the waist. And when you're measuring the length, you do not stretch. So let me work my upper part of the dress till I get to the waist, and I'll show you how to measure it. After working the length from the armpits to the waist, I seem to have lost the video recording for that part, and therefore I'll be showing you how to go about working the next part using this smaller swatch gauge, or this smaller version of the dress. So let me show you on the main dress what I'll be showing you. So now this is a dress, and the part that you need to have worked is the length from the armpits up to the waist. And for that part, I did a total of 9 inches, which was a total of 20 rows. So if your length is longer, you're going to do rows that are more than 20. Let's say you want to work from armpits to the waist with 11 inches, then it means that you'll have to do more than 20 rows. In my case, I've done 20. So I'll illustrate with one that I've done only 4 rows, but keep in mind that those are 20 rows. That is from the armpits, or from the top of your bust to the waist. Because next we need to start increasing in order to achieve the hip measurements. So now we are assuming that this is my 9 inches. And so what we'll do is, after you achieve that length of the top part, you're going to chain 1 and cut off the yarn. then pull through. Then next you're going to get to hold your work like this with this end on one side, then you're going to have the complete middle on the other side, and you need to get your stitch markers. You mark this end and the other one. So the two stitch markers, get them. I'm going to mark on a gap that is next to this part where we've cut off the yarn. It could be before or after, but just mark that gap, then hold your work like this so that you get the complete middle on the other side, and then you get your stitch marker and mark that end too. You can count your gaps or count your stitches and ensure that you have the complete middle. So that means the gaps on top should be equal to the gaps in the bottom. The next thing that you need to do is determine the side where you want your slit to go. If you want your slit to be on the left leg, then you're going to have it on this side. If you want it to be on the right leg, you're going to have it on the left side. And so then you're going to turn your work, and from the first gap that we've marked, because I want mine to be on the right side, I'm going to connect it. I'm going to create that part of the slit on this side. So I'll just turn my work like this, then count 6 gaps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6, even on the bigger part, on the bigger panel. Make sure that you count 6 gaps and then reconnect your yarn onto that 6th gap. Then you're going to chain 2, then go back into that gap with 1 double crochet, so that together with the chain you get 2 double crochets. Then into the next gap place 2 double crochets, two double crochets next, and place 2 double crochets into every gap till you get to the stitch marker. Once we get to the stitch marker, we'll pull it out, and we're going to work an increase at that point, and the increase goes like this. We place 2 double crochets into that gap, then chain 1, go back into the same gap with 2 more double crochets to make 4, or 2 double crochet shell stitch like that. Then we put the stitch marker onto the chain 1 that we've just made. Then we continue working into each of the other gaps till we get to the next stitch marker. We just place 2 double crochets into them. Once you get to the stitch marker, pull it out and do an increase there with 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 more double crochets into the same gap, get the stitch marker and mark that chain 1. This is my row 21. Then the remaining gaps to the end of the row will just get 2 double crochets, no chains in between. I'm at the end of row 21, and so I'll slip stitch on top of the chain 2. To complete the row. Then chain 2 and turn to begin row 22. Now we're going to be increasing in alternate rows, and that means when we increase in row 21, row 22 will have no increase. Then we're going to have an increase in row 23. And we'll keep alternating like that till we get to the hip measurements. Now begin with a double crochet in that first gap. So that together with the chain, we get our 2 double crochets. Then place 2 double crochets into the next gap. And place 2 double crochets into all the gaps. Then I'll meet you once I get to the stitch marker. When we get to the stitch marker, we're just going to pull it out. Then into that chain 1, place 2 double crochets. Then get the stitch marker and mark the stitch just before the 2 double crochets that we've done. So we are marking this gap that is before those 2 double crochets. Then we're going to continue with 2 double crochets into every gap till we get to the next stitch marker. I'm at the second stitch marker, which I'll pull out and work 2 double crochets into that space where the stitch marker was. Then get the stitch marker and mark the gap before the 2 double crochets that I've just worked, and continue to the end with 2 double crochets into every gap. Then this is the last gap, so 2 double crochets there. I'm at the end, so slip stitch on top of the chain 2 to complete row 22. Then chain 2 and turn to begin row 23. This next row is an increase row, and that means we're going to be alternating between a row of increase and a row of no increase. So I'll work 2 double crochets into every gap. When I get to the stitch marker, I'll increase, then increase in the other stitch marker. So right there, I'll place a shell that is 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 more double crochets. And mark the gap. So then I'll continue to the other stitch marker, increase, then go all the way to the end of row 23. Or the 3rd row after we've started working the skirt part. You can decide to count from the top, or you can count from the point where we've started increasing. So when I'm counting from the top, I'm in row 23. When I'm counting from the point of increase, I'm in row 3. I'm at the end of row 23, and I'll slip stitch on top of the chain 2 to complete chain 2 and turn to begin row 24. So now row 24 is going to be a row with no increase, and this is what we have at this point. So as you can see, our dress is starting to stretch to accommodate the hips, and as you increase, you're going to be measuring to ensure that you're getting closer to your hip measurement. And this is how you measure from one stitch marker to the other without stretching. We are at 16, which is 32. If we do give this a stretch, it gets us to, don't stretch out too much because you don't want something that is too tight, because when it's too tight, then it will create very large openings. So when I stretch, I'm getting to around 19.5, and 19.5 is 39 when multiplied by 2. I want to work until I get to 22 because I'm working a hip measurement of 44. So I'll keep increasing in alternate rows, and I'll be back once I've achieved the hip measurement. I've done a total of 4 increases and I've hit my hip measurement, so we're just going to confirm that. So from one stitch marker to the next one, I'm at 19 without stretching. I'm just giving this a little bit of a stretch, and it gets me to 22, which is exactly what I want to work with. So right now, I do not need the stitch markers anymore. I'll just pull them out, and I'll just work rows, repeat rows of no increase at all. So beginning with a chain 2, I'll just place 2 double crochets into each of the gaps. At the end, I'll slip stitch into the chain 2, and turn, and continue working 2 double crochets into the gaps till I get to a length of 15 inches from the waist. The 15 inches mark is the point where I want my slit to begin. So I'll measure from the point where I reconnected the yarn, and I want to work till I get to 15 inches. So if you want your slit higher, you can go up to 10, 11, 12, wherever you want your slit to begin. So let me work, and I'll get back once I'm at that point where I want my slit to begin. Then I'll show you how to create the slit. This is what I have after working for 37 rows from these points of increase, and a total of 57. So I'm at the 57th row, and I've already gotten the length that I wanted before I begin working the slit part. So I attached at this point. I actually think I overdid it. It was supposed to be at 15, but then it's at almost 17. So I did more rows, but I'm not going to undo. I'll just work with it the way it is because there's no way I'm going back. So from this point, we are going to create the slit. And to do that, I've gone back to that last row that I did. So instead of connecting at the end, what I'll do is I'll leave that point like that, then I'll chain 2 and turn. So we're going to leave an opening there, Once you turn, you start in the next chain, this one right here, and into that chain we're going to place 2 double crochets, then 2 double crochets into all the gaps, so go on, place 2 double crochets in each of the gap, and at the end I'll show you what to do. I'll be back once I get to this point. I'm coming to the end of this row, and this is my row 2 after the slit. So I'll just count the rows from this point. So I'm in row 2. At the end of row 2, I've just placed 2 double crochet into that gap, 2 double crochets that is, into the last gap, and our very last double crochet will be on top of the chain 2 that we started with, like that. Then we're going to chain 2 to begin row 3 and turn. Row 3 begins in this gap where we place just 1 double crochet, so that together with the chain we get 2 double crochets. Then we move to the next gap where we place 2 double crochets and repeat to the end. I'm coming towards the end of row 3. And I'm in the last gap. Sorry, this is the second last gap. So the last gap is right here. Into that gap I'll place 1 double crochet. Then the last double crochet will be on top of the chain 2. Then chain 2 and turn to begin row 4. Row 4 is going to be the same as row 2. So we begin in the chain, not in the chain, sorry, in the first gap where we place 2 double crochets. Then repeat all the way to the end. When we get to the end, we're going to place 2 double crochets into the last gap. Then the last double crochet will be on top of the chain 2. And now we're going to be alternating between row 2 and row 3. So that means row 2 is the same as row 4. Row 3 will be the same as row 5. So the even rows are the same, the odd rows are the same, and this is what we're going to repeat until we get the full length of the skirt that you want. So if you want a short skirt, you're going to do this for a few rows. If you want a maxi skirt, then you're going to keep going until you get that length. I'm working a maxi skirt, so I'm going to be doing several more rows, and then I'll be back and let you know how many rows I'll have done to achieve my full length. From the slit part, I've worked a total of 38 rows, and that gets me to my full length, which is 47 inches from the top. That is from this upper part all the way down to the heel. So let me show you my measurements so far. and the previous rows were 57, so 57 plus 38, that gets me to 95 rows. So I've done a total of 95 rows to get to the full length of my dress. So let's see. So right here we are at close to 47. When I measure, when it's not on the table, I go to 47. When I put it on, it fits. So we're going to go with that, and then we're going to do our final row, which is an edging, and it's done differently from the others. And you need to make sure that you're working on the right side of your dress as you do this last row. Begin by chaining 2 and turning your work to the right side. Then we're going to begin from the first gap, and into that gap we're going to do 3 double crochets. Then we'll skip the gap that follows and work into the third gap. So we are skipping, let me show you, it's easier this way. We are skipping this gap and working into the next one, a slip stitch. Then chain 2, work into that gap where we've slip stitched and place 3 double crochets. Skip the next gap, work into the next one with a slip stitch, chain 2, back into that gap with 3 double crochets. Skip this, work into the next one, slip stitch, and this is what you should get, and we repeat this to the end. So chain 2, 3 double crochets. Skip, slip stitch, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Skip, slip stitch next, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Skip, slip stitch, chain 2, 3 double crochets. I'm in the second last gap, and I'm going to chain 2, then do the 3 double crochets. Then in the last gap, which is this one right here, I'll just do a slip stitch, and you're done with the edging on the bottom of the skirt. Now we work. So this is what we have, and this is from the inside, this is from the outside. We want to work on the slit, so we work from the bottom to the top of the slit, then down to the bottom on the other side. Beginning from that point where I've slip stitched, I'll chain 1, and we have the double crochet rows, and each of the double crochet rows is going to get 2 single crochets. So beginning from this one, place 2 single crochets into it. Into the next double crochet row, 2 single crochets, 2 single crochets next, and just work the single crochets till you get to the top. I'll meet you here and show you how to work before you turn to the other side. So just 2 single crochets into every row now. at the top of the slit, a row just before the beginning of the stitch, and I'll place the 2 double crochets there. Then I'm going to skip this middle part, the whole of this, and go into the other row on the other side. So I'll just turn, so after the row, the last row on this side, just skip whatever is in the middle and then go straight into the other row on the other side, right there, and place your 2 single crochets. Then work 2 single crochets into all the other rows. So this is how that part will look like. I'll meet you at the bottom when I'm done with the single crochets on the rows. I'm in the last row where I'll place my 2 single crochets, then complete by slip stitching onto the first chain 2 that we did on this row. So slip stitch, chain 1, get the pair of scissors, cut off the yarn, pull through and fasten, and we are done with that part. You can get your darning needle and weave in that end. Then the part that is remaining is the upper part where we're going to attach the strap. So this is after the edging on the bottom and on the slit part. Now we turn to the top, and we're going to reduce some stitches on top because we want the dress to be fitting tightly over the bust. So we begin from the point where we started, this part right here. Get the yarn and reconnect it there. And because I don't want to leave this huge gap, I'm going to go to a point right here. Then connect the yarn there. That gap was a chain that was skipped, so we're going to chain 1 at that point, go back into that gap and place a single crochet. Then we move over to this stitch and place a single crochet into the gap, a single crochet into this stitch that has 2 double crochets. We do a single crochet. So basically what we're doing is placing 1 single crochet into each of the stitches to the end of this. Yeah, we call it row 1, the row 1 on top. As you can see, I'm working over my ends just to reduce the work of weaving at the end. So just place 1 single crochet into each of the stitches on top all the way around till you get back to this point. I'm in the last stitch where I will place my last single crochet, then slip stitch on top of the very first single crochet that I have done. Slip stitch, chain 1 and turn to begin row 2, and row 2 is going to be a reduction row, and we're going to reduce after every 9 stitches. This is the only reduction that we're going to work. We begin in the first stitch, place a single crochet, and then count 1, 2 in the second one, then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Then for the second, these two we combine them together. So insert your hook into the 10th stitch, pull up a loop, into the next one, pull up a loop to get 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all the 3. So we've combined those 2 stitches into one, then count another 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Then in the next two, 10th and 11th, we combine them together. Then another 9. Then reduce and repeat this to the end. I've just done my last reduction, and the stitches that are remaining are not 9, so I'll just place 1 single crochet into each one of them. This part might be different from yours, and it doesn't matter. So whatever is remaining, if you do not have any stitch to reduce, then you just work without reducing at the end. Then slip stitch into the first single crochet to complete that second row, chain 1 and turn, and you're going to work the final row with just 1 single crochet into every stitch, beginning with the first one, and then 1 single crochet into all the stitches all the way around, just 1 single crochet. I'm in the last stitch, so I'll slip stitch on top of the first single crochet, chain 1, get the pair of scissors and cut off the yarn, then pull through and fasten. And that's what we have on the upper part of the dress. Now we're going to work the straps. I'll work the straps separately, and then I'll attach them onto the dress. Start with a slip knot. I'll leave a long end for attaching on one side, so a long tail like that one. Then chain slip knot and chain 9. Then we're going to block off the 9th and chain 1 more, go back into that chain with 1 double crochet, just one double crochet, then yarn over, skip the next gap, place 2 double crochets into the next gap, yarn over, skip the next gap, the next chain, and place 2 double crochets into the next chain, yarn over, skip the next chain, place 2 double crochets into the chain that follows, and we're going to have 2 chains remaining, so we're going to skip over to the last one and place 2 double crochets into it. My chain, I want my strap to be a bit thicker, so if you don't want it this thick, you can do five chains. Is it thick? Yeah, thick chain 2 and turn to begin the second row, which we begin in this gap where we place 2 double crochets into the gap. Then we skip into the next gap and place 2 double crochets, 2 double crochets into the gap that follows, 2 double crochets into the last gap. Then the last stitch will be a double crochet on top of the chain 2. Then chain 2 and turn to begin row 3. We begin row 3 in this gap, and into that gap we place in just 1 double crochet, and that will make 2 double crochets together with the chain. Then work into the gaps with 2 double crochets. Then in the last gap we're going to place 1 double crochet, then the last double crochet will be on top of the chain 2. Chain 2 and turn to begin row 4, and row 4 is the same as row 2. So into this gap we skip and work into it, 2 double crochets, 2 double crochets into the next gap, 2 double crochets into the gap that follows, then 2 double crochets into the last gap, and a double crochet on top of the chain 2 from the beginning of the previous row. That's row 4, chain 2 and turn to begin row 5. Row 5 is the same as row 3. So we begin with a double crochet into the first gap, then 2 double crochets into all the gaps. Then repeat row 2 and 3 until you get the length of the strap that is going to fit on you. I've done a total of 20 rows, and this is enough for my strap length. Then I'll just chain 1, leave a long tail and cut off the yarn, then pull through, and this is a length of 14 when stretched. 14 right there. So now I'm going to work another strap like this, and then I'll connect them to the dress. I have my 2 straps ready. I'm going to connect them using the darning needle. So I'll just get the dress, the upper part of the dress, and we know we have this corner right here, and we have the other one on the other side. So from this point I'm going to count 6 stitches and then connect. Let me just get one of the straps, then I'll just count the 6 stitches from this part. So count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and into the 7th I'll connect from there into the 7th stitch. So in the first stitch of the strap and the 7th stitch, then the second stitch, which is the chain, and the next stitch on the dress, just sew them together. Once you get to the last stitch, just do a knot, and we have the strap attached on that part. Then I'll just go inside the stitches and weave in this end that has remained. And cut off whatever remains. Then again, we want to turn to the other side and count another 7 stitches. So I'm counting 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and this is where we attach 7th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into the 7th one right there. That's where the strap will connect. But then, because my end is on this side and these are 9 stitches, I'm going to count 9 stitches from here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So that's where I'm going to connect the strap, and I want to connect on the right side, so I'll turn. Let me put this yarn through. I hope you're getting what I'm doing. The dress is too big and the space is small, so that's why we have the confusion, a bit of a confusion, but I hope you're getting what you're doing. So I'm just putting that yarn through on the 9th stitch, and I'm turning it to the wrong side. So this is the right side, but then I need to work on the wrong side, so that's why I'm turning like this. And I'm going to join the 9 stitches. I just connected the last stitch, then I'll do a knot right there, then weave in the end on the stitches on the inside part. Then cut off whatever remains, and we have one strap in place. Then I'll also attach the other strap. Let me just put the dress upside down like this. So we have this strap in place. Now I want to get the exact middle on the other side. This part, I use this part, and this will be the middle part on the other side. Get the other strap. Wait. So then from this point I'll count 7 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into the 7th. I'll get the strap, connect the yarn into the darning needle, and start. In the 9th stitch, I'll do a knot, then weave in that end. So I'd counted 7 stitches, so that's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Again, from here I'm going to count 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 7. So the strap goes to this point on the other side. I'll count 9. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 and 9. So now I have my 2 straps in place. I'll just weave in all the other ends, and then so this is the front part. This end I'll just weave them off camera. Then on the waist area, it doesn't fit perfectly because we did not use the waist measurements. We just use the bust and the hip measurement. So at the back part, I'll do a chain and attach it on the waist area in order to draw it together so that it fits perfectly. I've done 150 chains, and I'll just get the back part of the toe of the dress, hold it like this, then I'll determine the middle part, and at a place right here I'll count 1 2 3 4 and 5 gaps, and put my strap through. That means we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 and 10. In the 10th, on the other side, I'll put the strap through. So I just skipped 1 row into the next row on a gap that corresponds to the other one. Put the strap through, then crisscross, go into, skip a row, then into the next row, and that same row on the other side. This is what you should have once you've added that strap at the back part of your dress, and that part draws the waist together so that it fits perfectly onto your waist. And at this point, we are done with the tutorial. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If you've enjoyed the tutorial, leave a like, a comment, share, subscribe, and when you recreate these, kindly tag me on my social media pages and I'll be reposting your work. See you in the next one.